That girl in yellow boots is now sipping Margarita with a straw. I'm at the Toronto International Film Festival with Kalki. Kalki, thank you so much for being with Filmy Cafe.
Thank you, Guneet.
So, how have the last 3 years been for you since that girl in yellow boots?
There's been a lot of changes, a lot of exciting stuff has happened. I've been doing some big films, Zindagi released after that, as well as Ye Jawani Hai Diwani. But then I've also done some alternative stuff. One of my favorite directors is Debaka Banerjee. I got to work with him on Shanghai. And now, of course, Margarita with a Straw, which is probably the biggest challenge I've had as an actor in a film. The scariest, definitely, because it's really an extreme role in terms of just the physical embodiment, not to mention the psychology and emotions behind it. So yeah, big challenges and great.
Now, what draws you as an actress to characters or roles, and what drew you to Laila?
Uh, what draws me is always the script, and in this case, Laila's character was obviously. I mean, the obvious thing is the fact that she has cerebral palsy, but even beyond that, we don't often see a woman portrayed in a disability. We also don't see such an larger than life and happy character. I mean, you think of disability and you always feel like it should be a very dark or depressing film, or it should be about pity. And this completely ignores that side and really just talks about the person behind the disability, and you forget about the disability. You see the person Laila, and that's the point of the film, that we are all people and we are going through something. And even if you take the CP out of this film, it still stands alone as an interesting story for me, because it's about a teenage girl who, you know, wants to fall in love, who wants to discover sex, but is awkward and makes all the wrong mistakes, and then finally learns to love herself, which is the main message of the film, that you need to accept yourself before you can even begin to take care of somebody else, or love somebody else. And so for me, that's what's lovely about the script, that it takes these huge issues like disability, sexuality, bisexuality, but it doesn't focus on them and say, "Oh, we're telling you about this." It's just by proxy. That's part of the story, but the story is more about who Laila is and how she falls in love with herself.
Now, when you play, you touched upon her having cerebral palsy, but when you play somebody that has a special ability, I would say, or has a special trait to them, is the investment as an actor greater or the responsibility greater?
Of course, there's a huge responsibility that to people who do have cerebral palsy, that you don't get it wrong and that you don't misportray what it is, and that was terrifying for me. I was only blinded by that for the first 3 months of training, because I didn't even think about the character and the psychology and all of that, because I just wanted to get that physical embodiment correct. So I worked with Malini, who's Shonali's cousin, who has cerebral palsy. I followed her around everywhere. She just welcomed me with open arms. She let me stay in her house. She let me go out. We got drunk together. We would go watch movies together.
That's important, right? Because the film is called Margarita with a Straw.
Exactly. Again, one of these things which we stereotypically like decide that people with disability don't have fun or don't party or don't drink or don't have sex, and it's just breaking all those taboos and those stereotypes. So I love that, and beyond that, I was so nervous about getting this right that I went to Malini's a physiotherapist and speech therapist. I worked with them just to understand muscularly, anatomically, what happens, how the tongue moves or doesn't move, is restricted, and how the lungs can hold less air, so your speech pattern is slower and less. I mean, you run out of breath, so you have to keep taking breaths, and things like this. So there was a lot of detailed work on the physicality, and then of course the emotional psychological thing of the character was even a bigger journey for me.
Obviously worked on bigger productions and you've worked on productions that are not so big budget wise. But what amount of difference does it make when you're working with good actors like you have Revati ma'am in the film? What does it make you a better actor when you're surrounded by good actors?
Of course, always. I think when you take a lot from your co-actor, and I think a lot of an actor's job is reacting. So no matter how much prep you do, you can prepare so much, but if your actor is deadpan in front of you and doesn't say, doesn't give you anything, it's very hard. So of course, it's a great pleasure to work with Revati. She's also such a good, wonderful person and a great actor. Shayoni also. So yeah, we were very lucky. Yeah, which I think yeah.
What is acting to you? You do theater, you do, if somebody says acting is, how do you answer that? What is acting to you?
Acting is, for me, is understanding human beings. It's really understanding human beings, the psyche, the emotions, the brain of someone. I always say if I wasn't an actor, I would want to be a criminal psychologist or someone who can really dissect the brain and understand how emotions and thoughts interrelate and react, and how that in turn affects how you speak, how you behave, how you walk, talk, everything. So for me, it's understanding the human being. That's what acting is.
Now, on acting and being a part of Margarita, doing Laila, what is the remnant impact that you take away from playing her?
A lot of things. One of the things is just basic education on cerebral palsy. Before this, the only thing I knew about CP was My Left Foot, that film with Daniel Day-Lewis. I really didn't know anything. And now, I have a lot of friends who have CP. I know a lot of people who are disabled. So I've understood and I'm aware of what it means, and I'm able to, react and act properly with people who have CP or another disability, and just be open about it and have an open discussion and things. And then secondly, what I've taken is um, this need to, you can never do too much preparation. I worked 6 months on this film and I still look at it, I'm like, oh, I should have done that. So I feel like there's always so much you can do. There's not enough you can do. So it's great. The more research you have, the more material you have, the better your character can become, the more detailed it can become. And thirdly, nothing. There's no role too scary. You got, the more scary it is, the more. As long as you're excited by it and you want to do it, I think you should just go for it. If you're in the right hands and you have the time and everything, then you should definitely go for it. And I hope I keep pushing myself and challenging myself.
Lastly, Kalki, everybody keeps talking about this new wave of how women are portrayed on screen, be it Queen, Mardani, Mary Kom, and now we can include Margarita with a straw. Have you found your space as an actress, and do you think it's a promising time to be an Indian woman on screen?
I'm very happy that this is happening. That there are more and more roles written for women. I hope it's not a trend, that it's not a fleeting trend. But I don't think so. I think there are women of influence in every walk of life, and I think the more real our films become, the more we will have to include women because we're part of it and we uphold half the society. So it's a fantastic time. I'm very glad to be part of it.
Thank you so much for making time for us, and congratulations on Margarita with the straw.
Thank you so much.